We're going to move on now to the European Commission perspective with Andrzej Jan Rees. He's the Director of Directorate B, Health Systems and Innovation at DG SANTE, the European Commission.
Thank you, Brian. So my turn is a very short introduction to the pharma strategy, which I think is already in the discussion today, and very shortly about the link to antimicrobial resistance. So let me go to the next slide, which I think is an important one because it shows that in this pharma strategy agenda, which was established by European Commission end of 2020. We had number of actions. This is 55 together. It's constructed around 4 pillars, starting from unmet medical needs, assuring the access of affordability of medicines. Of course, antibiotics are playing an important role in this. Supporting competition, innovation of pharma industry, again, important part for discussion today. Finally, ensuring the diversification of supply chains, environment protection, also linked to the Green Deal where Europe is promoting now, and crisis preparedness, of course, after during the crisis, we learn more about this issue. And finally, strengthening our European voice in the global debate, and again, AMR, antibiotics is something we are active, and we continue to be active in a number of fora, and also in cross-Atlantic relations through TATRA. So we would like to, of course, develop the new regulatory system, which is looking for the future, promoting research technology, at the same time is accessible to patients and fulfill the therapeutic needs. It's a very idealistic picture, but let's hope we can get there in a relatively short time. So next slide, please. But when you see this, from a legislative agenda, European Commission is not only about legislation, but of course, in the European system, we are only one who have the right of legislation. So we have to prepare the whole concept, regulatory framework, and then negotiate with the European Council and European Parliament. So what is a big issue around of us is ahead of us is the revision of Basic Pharmaceutical Act, which is kind of cornerstone of the European legislation in pharmaceutical fields. It's quite established, developed during more than half a century, but I think we need to have a look, what doesn't work, how we can modernize this act, allowing us to reach the goals of this strategy. Part of this package will be orphan pediatric legislation, which is quite specific part, but again, it's quite also interesting to see how a number of provisions in those legislations are working, what is not working. Maybe some ideas also can be transferred to other parts of legislation. HD proposal, we are in third year of negotiation, so it looks like there's a light in the tunnel. We are in the final trialogue with European Parliament in the Council in next Monday. So let's see if we can get the final okay. If this the best possible proposal, most probably many will say it could be more ambition, could be better, but I think we are approaching as EU quite important territory, and which allowed us really move ahead with number of developments. You discussed already together with Wolfgang the issues around HERA. Important part also is linked to clinical trials, because this regulation, as you know, was is having already a number of years. It was kind of constructed the way that can be fully applicable only when IT system is fully functioning, and this was quite complex project, IT project developed by EMA together with the European Commission, with national agencies. And the good news is that we are there. Now we have the date of starting, this 31st of January next year. And by this time, I hope all parties will be trained and prepared to use the system, and we will be in the new environment, allowing multinational trials set up faster and hopefully in better quality, and also involving more operators. On IP, there is all kinds of discussions around this area. So we are also reflecting what to change. This is something which the DG GROW, the other part of the Commission, is responsible, but of course we are closely working together on this. And finally, the European health data space is a very important journey ahead of us. We hope to establish a regulatory framework to move health data across continent. There are all kinds of ideas, but we plan to build in one hand regulatory framework, but also simultaneously support development of infrastructure and do a number of pilots in coming year already. Okay, so next slide, please. So when we go to this one, we of course see the kind of idea around AMR are written. I think already in your preparation for this meeting it was mentioned. And again, the challenges we are facing around availability, around development of new antimicrobials, but of course also prudent use of antibiotics. So what will be the results? Maybe we can go to the next slide. This is what we aim in the strategy. Next slide, please. So when you see this from the pillars of those aims we are going to attack, this is on availability. We believe there should be more about obligation for supplies and transparency, notification of shortages and withdrawals. We see this as a growing problem, and we like to make sure this is somehow more clearly understood by all stakeholders. Transparency on stocks and stronger EU coordination. Of course, you may say this also linked to HERA mandate, but maybe we can look for other instruments as well. The structured dialogue between manufacturers, public authorities. We started already the structured dialogues across the supply chain, involving also patients and health professionals, and including, for example, pharmacists, hospital pharmacists, and doctors. And this structured dialogue will help us understand better, how this supply chain work and may work better in the future. On the development, of course, we would like to continue support all kinds of developments through Horizon and
1 minute, Andrzej. 1 minute.
Yeah, I'm concluding. And on the prudent use, of course, many issues. What could be more done? Let's see, because you have seen in the veterinary field we have done more than here. And then we go to the last two slides. The one is about the revision of the basic pharmaceutical acts. You can see this development during next year and a half. Lot of consultations. Please make sure that you also contribute as you do already. And I think it's important to finish with the last slide. When you see the way we are consulting this process, we really try to go through the number of interaction workshops, trying to understand, what is best, what can be put into the system. We have the pharma committee, which is having almost constant work on the strategy. We are working very closely with the national body, with reimbursement and technology assessment bodies and so on. And just give you a last example, we can also show you the activities in next few 2-3 weeks. We'll have the meeting with so-called health policy directors responsible for pharma, and focus will be on AMR. And I think this is on agenda. This is what I am saying, and this is important now to make sure that all these puzzles, can really start to fit together and answer to the demand. You already mentioned a number of your interventions today. Thank you very much.
Andrzej, thank you so much. That was excellent. And now I have two other questions which we are not going to have time to take, but if Alessandro and Kunal want those to be addressed to someone specifically, please put that in the chat and we will send that question to that person and ask them to reply to directly. So apologies, we just don't have more time to stay with that. So now just some concluding remarks from Mark Itzinger. He's the Beam Alliance Vice President. Mark, great to have you with us.
Thank you, Brian, and thank you for giving me the opportunity to actually make the closing remarks. I hope that you see my screen. Thanks to all the speakers and the attendees of this great session. It's my honor and also my burden to give you the closing remarks of such a great session today. And I want to actually start and also will conclude with this slide from Florence. It is incredibly important to act now and to turn the great words that we heard today into concrete actions. I think what we heard was very encouraging messages, and I truly hope that we didn't just have a round of preaching to the already converted, because what we heard is a political understanding of really a complex, or the entire complexity of the broken economic model in AMR that we have today. And from this political understanding, we saw that there's clearly the will to make change. COVID-19 certainly has played a crucial role in this, a sad role on the one hand, but on the other hand, one that showed us the crisis that infectious disease can leave us with. And I think here the member states are key in the process for adapting, for instance, innovative approaches for procurement, defining the right criteria. We have heard from the Dutch perspective, but also from many other people that many criteria play a role here, and we need to combine those. To actually come up with innovative partnerships, allowing for the combination of development and purchase elements. Then I think what is really important from the perspective of Beam as well, and this is coming even to learnings from the UK model, etc. If we talk about joint procurement and also subscription models, please always keep in mind who you are dealing with. SMEs are a slightly different animal than often HDAs and also procurement offices are faced with. We are smaller, we have limits on our budget, and we have more difficulties to actually have the capacities for global manufacturing and access, etc. So we need sometimes more time. Please keep that in mind in discussions and designing tools. Lastly, the reality check from the daily fight of survival for SMEs. You know, I heard this and I really appreciate this on the slide. We actually know, Arjon said that, what we're looking for. The priority bucket list is there. SMEs actually know what they should deliver, and they're doing so. And now it's really important that we don't take another 5 years to deliver new pull mechanisms. I think this is really crucially important. Now on, the next slide, we saw that HERA came to life, or slowly comes to life because of COVID-19. AMR is luckily part of this as a public health emergency. And HERA could play a really important role as pipeline coordinator and link to private and public sector. Until HERA is fully operational, we heard from Wolfgang that there is an assessment needs, or the needs assessment for the AMR sector. And there's going to be the analyzing of the AMR stockpiling option and the global coordination. Again, the sense of urgency, we really hope that it's not going to be our kids that talk about HERA being alive, but really that it happens now. And then we saw from BARDA a lot of the success factors and learnings that they have had over the years. And I think Chris was able to point out really the success factors being nimble and flexible with the appropriate budgets, long-term vision on funding, and the right people and access to the right expertise to actually define what is going to be funded and promoted. The numbers speak for themselves. 1.5 billion is indeed not a very large number of funding compared to a single drug development, which often actually takes exactly this amount for one successful drug. And then we have 28 AMR candidates being funded with this and 3 already approved. So I think this is really a great example of success. And we certainly hope from the industry or the private sector that HERA and BARDA will talk together and make the best of both worlds, and that HERA becomes a true partner across the Atlantic for this AMR public health emergency. Lastly, I think what Lotte presented to us was amazing, with a very clear statement on the HTA assessment criteria that currently don't reflect at all the adequate value assessment for antibiotics. And here we really need a structural change. We cannot continue price per pill models. We should learn, for example, from the vaccines to include prevention as a benefit into the valuations of antibiotics. And I think what is important to understand is also HTA and assessment, pricing, and pull incentives don't live separate lives. They come together. We need pull incentives very urgently, but we also need HTA reforms to have an appropriate value assessment to come in the end to a sustainable AMR business model again. And another very important point on Lotte's slides, I think it is completely inappropriate to have antibiotics still in DRG bundles, because it's setting all the wrong incentives for hospitals, thus for patients, and also for the companies. Kevin showed us shockingly, once again, the incredibly low numbers of sales of recently approved antibiotics. And more importantly, he pointed out what it actually means, even for countries of the G7 and G20. And we often speak about global access for antibiotics. And here is a very clear statement also from the private sector. How does anyone expect us to make sure and ensure global access if we're not even able to ensure access for the main G7 countries? My final remarks are that we as stakeholders must talk together. That's why such roundtables are important. The Beam Alliance is here to continue the discussion with all partners. We need to design push and pull incentives for success, so everyone needs to be giving its input. We please need to design trials for pull incentives now. I appreciate that the Horizon Europe program is now asking for a call to design an appropriate model, but please be more bold, give it a trial, and give a sign to the market. We need a clear message to the private sector to come and take risk again for AMR drug development. If that doesn't happen, a lot of these small companies that currently hold the innovation are lost, and that would be very inappropriate compared to the public health emergency. Also, whenever you design something also in Europe, please keep the size in mind. The US is a good example with a similar population than Europe, and the PASTEUR Act speaks of very clear sizes and numbers, as does the BARDA funding. And then the same is true here for all of the different measures that are in the discussion. Please use the right amount of funding, compared to the international numbers. Look at the US, UK, and Swedish models that are already in trial positions now, and use the right people to make the decisions in the end. Always don't forget the patients. We need this relatively fast, these actions, because otherwise we certainly don't get the products that we need. In my personal priority settings that I would like to give out for today, for everyone that goes home and tomorrow back to the office, also in the political settings, please work immediately on the pull incentives. It's so incredibly important. Take action now, be brave. Secondly, HTA assessment. Really work on the update of assessment, and also for the industry, try to design trials that actually show the value of AMR products as much as possible. And on the push funding, I think keep the good work up, because a lot has been done and achieved in this part, but also don't rest to further improve. And I'll end now with, again, the key message. It's time for action.
Mark, thank you so much. It certainly is time for action. And those who want to participate further, Andrzej has mentioned in one of his slides the possibility to invite stakeholders to the Pharmaceutical Committee meetings. And those who've been attending today, I think if you had any doubt about why it's so important to contribute, why there's so many dimensions that need to be brought to this discussion, you'll have the opportunity to do so there. I'm sure the Beam team can put you in touch with the relevant organization structure there to get that working for you. So this for me to thank all our speakers, all our panelists today. Mark, thanks for closing today, and also to the team as well for all the work that's been going on for months to pull this all together. From my side, as a journalist, it's clear that there's a huge amount still to be discussed. This is a critical issue, and Europe has It's punching far below its capacity at the moment. It's time to scale up.